r/ask Reddit. What was the please stop school presentation that you witnessed? In college, someone was doing a presentation on Nelson Mandela and kept referring to Africans as African Americans. Something similar happened in my school too. The kids were supposed to be presenting on African music, literature, and art, and they starting talking about Kendrick Lamar. This was in Ducking College. Our bio finals were to present on any topic that was related to biology. A group was presenting on types of protection for sex. Not once did they refer to any body parts or fluids by their scientific names. So, yes, they literally had dong, cum, and kitten on slides and read off them. Everyone kept glancing over at our professor, who had this look like he was just constantly cleaning his glasses because he couldn't believe what he was witnessing. They got Kentucky ducked on grading. I've told this on Reddit a few times, but it's truly unforgettable. Smart kid in the class was giving a deeply sourced PowerPoint presentation on religion in Europe. He opens up his files, proceeds to click on his project named Enga. He says clearly I wasn't really paying any attention when I named my file. He gives a presentation. He stutters and sweats bullets while we watch in utter disbelief. The word is sitting there on the top of the file heading the whole time. This was during a study abroad semester while attending a cultural communication class. He had to rot in his own shit after that. It's me. I did this. I cringe about it to this day. Nearly 20 years later. I was 16 and in high school. My high school was going to do a spring talent show. I wanted to be in the talent show and show off my talents. The problem was, my actual talents are not ones that I could show off at a talent show. So I decided to try singing. I have never sung in my life. I have never had voice lessons. I was in my prime weeb stage and chose an anime song to sing. I didn't know any actual Japanese. I had just memorized the lyrics from hearing the song so many times. Luckily I didn't make it past auditions. But several people saw an overweight girl in a Sailor Moon shirt try to sing Butterfly despite having never done any singing or voice training ever in her life. Nearly 20 years later. And remembering it keeps me awake at night. A girl in my school danced to Hatsune Miku for a presentation. I cringed, but I admired her balls to do something like that. When I was in high school, a girl from an absurdly wealthy family gave a presentation on why the rich are just as oppressed as anyone. This was in a normal public school in Kentucky where about 90% of the students were middle class at best. You could feel the eyes rolling in that room. When I was a 9th grade student, we had to present the poems we made in English class. Most people wrote about embracing their culture, loving their friends, etc. And then there was that one kid who recited a lifestyle poem which compared fat people to beached whales and said that people who don't work out will die before they're 20. This was a Spanish class in college, and I think the assignment was something like talk about your best friend or some such. Just kind of a softball assignment so you could practice using the vocabulary. And one classmate's friend was evidently a friend with benefits. Was there anyone there with no friends? An anti-bullying campaign. They spent most of the presentation explaining different types and ways to harass people. Bullying increased in school and everything got 10 times worse now that the students were more educated on the subject. This was my presentation, and it was about the science behind how Mountain Dew can dissolve a mouse. This was in 4th grade. Needless to say I got some parent complaints. Every year someone did the Coke and Bones experiment at my school. Every year it won an award. Was in a video filmmaking class in high school. One group of guys did a parody of those Gatorade commercials where the athlete's sweat is colored like Gatorade but it was a sweaty guy jerking off. Apparently there was a Gatorade cum shot but the teacher just turned that shit off immediately before it got that far. In my high school current events class 2 freshman girls got a little lost in their research about ISIS. They somehow connected this terrorist group to the magic bullet theory used in the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Me and the few other seniors were holding back laughter the entire presentation. Some guy in my class, about 12-13 years old, confused heroic and erotic. The teacher asked if he really read an erotic book and he said yes. As the student watched in disbelief, took the teacher 30 seconds to catch up the misunderstanding. In high school a student died in a car accident where she was driving. There was no record that stated she was distracted by her phone or anything, but the school decided to have an assembly shortly after talking about distracted driving and using her as an example, telling the whole school she'd be alive if she was doing what she was supposed to. That's ducked. Presentation on World War II. Student had just discovered all the neat transitions you can use between slides and decided to use a different one each slide. They used the flashing heart transition between a photo slide of a mass grave and a photo slide of Hitler. I was doing work experience with a bunch of special needs kids at a school. We were watching a play that I don't remember the name of, which was about someone who was in a gang or something and got HIV. Instead of having any action or dialogue, the story was told through characters standing out the front and telling the story to the audience. It was dull as hell. The special needs kids were getting so restless, and I couldn't blame them, because it was terrible. The anti-vaxxer chick that did a presentation on why vaccines cause autism, followed up by someone else's presentation on how vaccines do not cause autism. It was a weird day. I bet the guy who went after her felt pretty confident when he walked up. B School Ethics class. We had a group give a presentation on how society benefited from the tobacco industry. They were ripped to shreds by the professor and rest of the class. Someone gave a speech about durian in a class once. She brought a small frozen sample that thawed as the class went on. The professor let students step out the room. Coincidentally, one of the culinary classes reported a gas leak and pulled the fire alarm. I never did this, but my dream was to include a slide of a bear running toward us and then me yelling, "Oh no, a bear," and then quickly going to the next slide, saying whoa, that was close, and then going on like nothing happened. I have a feeling I would have ended up in this thread. Sophomore year of high school, we were tasked with bringing in an object from home and giving a presentation on why the object explains you as a person. Kid brought in a knife, not a big one, but a knife nonetheless. He actually gave a decent presentation, but ended getting expelled because of it later that day. In college during abnormal psychology, a student did an entire presentation on Obama's bipolar disorder. She kept citing an article from The Onion. During our practice rounds for senior presentations, a girl got up with her PowerPoint that had paragraphs of text on each slide and then proceeded to read the paragraphs word for word from her notecards. The teacher stopped her and asked if this is how her whole presentation was, and when she responded yes, the teacher stopped her and asked her to change her presentation. She wasn't understanding what was wrong, so we kindly gave her some feedback. She redid the presentation a few days later, but the original was rough. In 8th grade, we each had to do a PowerPoint presentation on some historical event. The resident smartest elitist gamer kid did his in the style of zero punctuation, talking fast, trying to go for British dry snarky humor, and putting snarky comedic slides in his presentation. I don't even remember what it was about. I just remember him trying way too hard to be Yahtzee when I was literally the only other person in the room who knew who that was. No one was impressed, not even me, and I was one of the closest people in that room he had to a real friend. If I recall correctly, the teacher actually got really annoyed at his presentation because of how he tried to focus on a gimmick rather than get the point across. Theatre school. One guy did a 30-minute presentation on why UK grime music is the future of theatre. Expect it was just music videos and no context. He failed. We all had headaches after. High school junior English class. An easy 6/7 years ago, so details are fuzzy, but we had weeks to prepare a presentation alongside an informative essay that we wrote. Weeks of in-class time, like 3-4 weeks of full 5-day, 50-minute classes for this essay, presentation, and the actual presenting. This kid in the class decided to write about the problems of procrastination. For the essay, it was a few sentences. Something like, I procrastinated and this was the result. Nothing done. etc. The presentation. A few slides, all white with the default texts and sizes, and it was something along the same lines of, I have nothing prepared because my topic is procrastination. The teacher was disturbingly unimpressed and the kid threw such a fit about falling this major project. Seriously, it was a hefty portion of the class that he transferred out of the class. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.